Nathan Cole sat alone in his small office on the edge of human territory, staring at the blinking light on his communicator. The message was urgent, marked with a priority code he hadn't seen in years. It came from Claire, his younger sister, who worked aboard the research station EOS. She rarely contacted him unless it was important. And this time, her tone was different, frantic, almost scared. He pressed play, and her voice filled the room. "Nathan, if you're hearing this, it means I didn't have time to send anything else. Something's wrong here, really wrong. The experiments, they've opened something we shouldn't have touched." Her voice cracked for a moment before she continued. "It's not just energy or some anomaly. It's alive, ancient, and it's waking up." The recording ended abruptly, leaving Nathan staring at the device in silence. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Claire wasn't one to exaggerate. If she said something was wrong, then it was bad, really bad. The thought of losing her gnawed at him, but there was more to it than that. Whatever she had stumbled upon could affect everyone. Outside his window, the stars twinkled coldly against the blackness of space. This sector of the galaxy felt quiet, almost too quiet. Humanity had expanded far beyond Earth, colonizing planets and forming alliances, or uneasy truces, with alien species. But peace was fragile. Every race had its own agenda, and tensions simmered beneath the surface. Nathan's job as a diplomat was to keep those tensions from boiling over. Yet now, it seemed like humanity might be the ones causing the next big disaster. His mind raced as he tried to piece together what Claire meant by opening something. The research station EOS specialized in quantum resonance experiments, pushing the boundaries of science to harness energy from parallel dimensions. It was risky work, but no one expected it to awaken something sentient, or worse, something malevolent. Nathan stood up and paced the room. He needed answers, but getting them wouldn't be easy. Traveling to EOS would take days, even with the fastest ship available. And if Claire's warning was accurate, time wasn't on their side. Still, he couldn't ignore her call for help. She was family, and beyond that, she might hold the key to preventing catastrophe. As he prepared to leave, a dull ache settled in his chest. Something about this felt bigger than just Claire or EOS. Humanity had always been driven by curiosity, pushing limits and exploring the unknown. But sometimes, curiosity came with consequences. Had they gone too far this time? Was this the price for reaching so deep into the mysteries of the universe? Before stepping out, Nathan glanced once more at the communicator. Claire's words echoed in his mind. "It's waking up." Whatever it was, Nathan knew one thing for certain. It wasn't going to stay confined to EOS for long. Rachel Myers stood at the podium in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Coalition headquarters, her hands gripping the edges as she scanned the room. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the chamber, their faces a mix of curiosity and suspicion. The air buzzed with quiet murmurs, each conversation laced with tension. For years, Rachel had worked tirelessly to maintain peace between humanity and the other races, but today felt heavier than usual. Something was brewing, something dangerous. She adjusted the microphone and began speaking, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "We stand here today, not just as leaders, but as guardians of our shared future," she said. "Our actions will shape the path ahead for all species. Cooperation is not optional. It's necessary." Her speech was met with polite nods, though some eyes narrowed in skepticism. Rachel knew why. Rumors had been spreading across the galaxy about strange occurrences near the galactic core. Planets disappearing without explanation. Ships vanishing after sending garbled distress calls. Even colonies reporting eerie phenomena. Lights flickering. Voices echoing where no one should be. While most dismissed these stories as superstition or malfunctioning equipment, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were connected. After the meeting ended, Rachel retreated to her private quarters aboard the station. She stared out the large window, watching the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. Her mind replayed fragments of conversations she'd overheard earlier. Some delegates whispered about humanity's recklessness, blaming Earth's rapid expansion into uncharted territories for disturbing ancient forces better left alone. Others hinted at retaliation if humans didn't pull back. Rachel sighed and turned away from the view. She wanted to dismiss the rumors as paranoia, but deep down, she feared there might be truth to them. Humanity had always pushed boundaries, eager to explore and conquer. But now, it seemed like they'd crossed a line they didn't fully understand. And if the whispers were true, if something ancient and powerful had been awakened, it wouldn't stop with Earth. The entire galaxy would suffer. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime from her communicator. A message blinked on the screen, an update from intelligence officers monitoring activity near the galactic core. Rachel opened it, her stomach tightening as she read the details. Another colony had gone silent overnight. Rescue teams sent to investigate found nothing. No survivors, no wreckage, just empty buildings frozen in time, as if everyone had vanished mid-step. Rachel leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. This wasn't just bad luck or coincidence anymore. Someone, or something, was targeting those areas, and the pattern suggested it was getting closer to populated regions. If word got out, panic would spread faster than she could contain it. For now, she decided to keep the information quiet. Telling the coalition would only fuel distrust and fear, possibly sparking conflict before they even understood the threat. Instead, she resolved to dig deeper herself. Tomorrow, she'd reach out to trusted contacts within human space, starting with Nathan Cole. His position on the frontier gave him access to places few others dared to go. Maybe he heard something useful. As Rachel powered down her terminal, she glanced once more at the stars outside her window. They looked peaceful, untouched by the chaos brewing beneath their surface. She hoped that whatever was coming, humanity and the galaxy, would find a way to face it together. But doubt lingered in her heart. Unity was fragile, and fear had a way of tearing even the strongest alliances apart. Aaron Blake tightened his grip on the wrench as he crouched beneath the humming machinery of Delta 9's main generator. The air was thick with the smell of oil and metal, and the dim lights above flickered occasionally, casting long shadows across the room. It wasn't supposed to be this quiet. The colony's halls were usually alive with the sounds of workers chatting or tools clanging against pipes. But tonight, everything felt off. He paused, listening closely. For a moment, there was only the steady hum of the generator. Then, faintly, he heard it, a whisper. It wasn't loud enough to make out words, but it sent a chill down his spine. Aaron shook his head, telling himself it was just the wind slipping through cracks in the walls or the echo of his own thoughts. Still, he couldn't shake the unease settling in his chest. Climbing to his feet, Aaron glanced around the empty corridor outside the generator room. The other engineers had already gone to their quarters for the night, leaving him alone on maintenance duty. He hated these late shifts, especially when strange things started happening. Earlier that week, miners had reported hearing voices in the tunnels, though no one could explain where they came from. A few claimed they saw figures moving in the darkness, but when they checked, there was nothing there. Aaron tried to focus on his work, but the whispers returned, louder this time. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, wrapping around him like a cold breeze. His hands trembled as he fumbled with the wrench, nearly dropping it. "Get a grip," he muttered under his breath. "It's just your imagination." But deep down, he knew it wasn't. Something was wrong here. And it wasn't just the isolation or fatigue playing tricks on him. Over the past few days, people had started disappearing. At first, everyone assumed they'd wandered off or decided to leave without notice. Delta 9 wasn't exactly paradise. But now, even the colony's security team was starting to worry. No one had found any trace of the missing miners, not even a boot print or a drop tool. The whispers grew more insistent, pulling Aaron toward the far end of the corridor. Against his better judgment, he followed them, his boots echoing softly against the metal floor. The sound led him to an old storage room that hadn't been used in months. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint blue glow seeped through the crack. His heart pounded as he pushed it open. Inside, the room was filled with floating symbols, glowing, pulsating shapes that hovered in the air like fireflies. They shifted and danced, forming patterns too complex for him to understand. Aaron reached out instinctively, but the symbols scattered at his touch, vanishing into thin air. A sudden wave of dizziness hit him, and he stumbled back, clutching the doorframe for support. When the room went dark again, Aaron realized he wasn't alone. Shadows moved along the walls, twisting into forms that looked almost human, but wrong. Their outlines stretched and bent unnaturally, and their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. One of them turned toward him, and Aaron froze, unable to move or speak. Then, as quickly as it began, the vision faded. The room returned to normal, leaving Aaron gasping for breath. He didn't know what he'd just seen, but he knew one thing for certain. Delta 9 wasn't safe anymore. Grabbing his communicator, he called the control center, his voice shaking as he explained what happened. By the time help arrived, the symbols were gone, and so were the shadows. But Aaron knew they were still out there, waiting. Back on Earth, the global summit was meant to be a chance for unity, but it quickly turned into chaos. Sam Ford stood near the back of the crowded auditorium, her tablet in hand as she recorded every moment. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices rising like a storm. Some blamed corporate greed for depleting resources, while others accused rival nations of hoarding supplies. It was clear that humanity's rapid expansion across the stars had come at a cost, and now they were paying for it. Sam adjusted her earpiece, trying to block out the noise so she could focus. As a journalist, she'd seen plenty of heated debates, but this felt different. This wasn't just politics, it was survival. Earth's resources were running low, forcing colonies to push deeper into alien territories. The problem was, those territories weren't empty. Alien species watched humanity's advance with suspicion, and some had already started retaliating. Sam knew the truth. Earth's leaders weren't just fighting each other. They were setting the stage for a war that could engulf the entire galaxy. Her attention shifted to a group of protesters outside the building. They held signs demanding transparency, accusing corporations of hiding the real reasons behind the shortages. Sam recognized some of the slogans from her own investigations. She'd spent weeks digging through classified documents, uncovering evidence that powerful companies had ignored warnings about overexploiting planets. Their greed had driven humanity further into hostile regions, risking conflict with alien civilizations. The protests grew louder, and soon the shouting turned violent. A group of rioters broke through the security barriers, charging toward the entrance. Inside, panic spread as guards rushed to seal the doors. Sam found herself caught between the chaos inside and the fury outside. Her heart raced as she pressed herself against a wall, clutching her tablet tightly. This was exactly what she'd feared. Fear turning into anger, and anger spiraling into destruction. As the situation worsened, Sam spotted Nathan Cole near the front of the room. He looked pale, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. She remembered his name from her research. He was a diplomat stationed on the edge of human space, far from Earth's problems. But something about his expression told her he wasn't here by choice. Whatever he knew, it wasn't good. When the first explosion rocked the building, everyone froze. Smoke filled the air as alarms blared, and people scrambled for cover. Sam ducked behind a row of chairs, coughing as dust clouded her vision. Through the haze, she saw Nathan sprinting toward a side exit, clutching a data drive in his hand. Curiosity burned inside her. What was on that drive? And why was he running? The second explosion sent debris raining down, forcing Sam to abandon her questions for now. She crawled toward the nearest exit, her mind racing. Outside, the scene was even worse. Fires raged as rioters clashed with police, their shouts drowning out the sound of sirens. Sam managed to slip away unnoticed, her instincts kicking in. She needed answers, and she had a feeling Nathan Cole might have them. Later that night, in the safety of her apartment, Sam reviewed the footage she'd captured during the summit. The riots, the explosions, it all pointed to something bigger than resource shortages or political infighting. Someone wanted fear to spread, and they were succeeding. Humanity's fragile peace was cracking under the weight of its own mistakes. If no one stepped up to stop it, the galaxy would burn, and Earth would be the first to fall. Nathan Cole's hands trembled as he inserted the data drive into his communicator. The small device had been burning a hole in his pocket since he'd fled the summit, and now, finally alone in his quarters, he could see why. The files on the drive were fragments of Claire's research from EOS, pieced together in a rush before the station went dark. Each file painted a clearer picture of what they'd unleashed, and it was worse than he'd imagined. The quantum resonance experiment wasn't just about harnessing energy. It was designed to tap into dimensions beyond their own, pulling resources from places humanity barely understood. But something had come through, something ancient and vast. According to Claire's notes, the entity called itself the Void. It didn't exist in physical form, but thrived on fear, despair, and conflict. Worse still, it fed off those emotions, growing stronger with every moment of panic or violence. Nathan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. If the Void was real, then the riots at the summit weren't random. They were part of its plan. It wasn't just consuming fear, it was amplifying it, turning people against each other until chaos consumed them. And if it spread, no one, not humans, not aliens, would be safe. He knew he couldn't face this alone. Scrolling through his contacts, he found Rachel Meyer's name and hesitated before sending a message. She was smart, resourceful, and had connections within the Galactic Coalition. If anyone could help him make sense of this, it was her. Within minutes, she replied, agreeing to meet him discreetly at a neutral spaceport on the edge of human territory. When Nathan arrived, Rachel was already waiting, her sharp eyes scanning the crowded docking bay. They exchanged quick greetings before retreating to a private room aboard her ship. Nathan explained everything. The message from Claire, the data on the drive, and his theory about the Void. Rachel listened silently, her face unreadable until he finished. "This explains the disappearances," she said finally, her voice low. "The colonies near the galactic core, the ships that vanished, they weren't accidents. This thing is hunting, feeding, growing." She shook her head, frustration etched on her face. "If we don't stop it, it'll tear the galaxy apart." As they discussed their next steps, Nathan mentioned Aaron Blake's name. He'd heard rumors about strange occurrences at Delta 9 and thought the young engineer might have valuable information. Rachel agreed it was worth investigating, though time was running out. Reports of unrest were spreading faster than they could track, and the Void seemed to be moving closer to populated areas. Before leaving the ship, Rachel handed Nathan a small device, a secure communicator linked directly to her terminal. "Stay in touch," she said firmly. "We can't afford any more mistakes." Back on his own ship, Nathan stared at the communicator, his thoughts heavy. For years, humanity had pushed boundaries, exploring the stars and claiming new worlds. But now, it seemed like they'd awakened something far beyond their understanding. Fear and division had always been humanity's greatest weaknesses, and the Void was exploiting them perfectly. If they didn't find a way to contain it soon, there might not be anything left to save. For the first time in his life, Nathan felt truly afraid, not just for himself, but for everyone. The galaxy had never known fear like this before, and now, thanks to humanity's recklessness, it might never know peace again. Aaron Blake sat hunched over a cluttered desk in Delta 9's makeshift command center, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The colony was eerily silent now, most of the remaining workers having fled after the disappearances escalated. Those who stayed behind did so out of desperation or duty, clinging to hope that help would arrive before it was too late. Aaron didn't blame them for leaving. He wanted to run himself, but something kept him rooted to the spot. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was the nagging feeling that he was close to uncovering the truth. The data fragments he'd recovered from the storage room were scattered and incomplete, but they told a story. Strange energy readings, unnatural fluctuations in the colony systems, and coordinates pointing to a location near the galactic core. Aaron had pieced together enough to realize the symbols he'd seen weren't random. They were part of some kind of alien map. Whatever the void was, it had left breadcrumbs leading somewhere, and Aaron intended to follow them. His work was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Startled, he spun around to see Nathan Cole and Rachel Myers standing there, their faces tense but determined. Aaron recognized Nathan instantly from news reports about the riots on Earth, though he looked more worn out in person. Rachel introduced herself quickly, explaining that they'd heard about Delta 9's troubles and believed it was connected to what they were investigating. Aaron hesitated, unsure whether to trust them. But when Nathan mentioned Claire's name, something clicked. He nodded and gestured for them to sit, then shared everything he'd discovered. The whispers, the glowing symbols, the missing miners. As he spoke, he could see the weight of his words sinking in. They weren't just dealing with a local problem anymore. This was bigger than Delta 9. Rachel pulled up a holographic star chart on her wrist console, comparing it to the coordinates Aaron had decoded. Her brow furrowed as she traced a line toward the galactic core. "There's a derelict alien vessel here," she said, pointing to a blinking dot. "It matches the patterns you described. If we're right, this might hold answers." Nathan leaned forward, studying the map. "Or it could be a trap," he muttered, though his tone suggested he already knew what they had to do. Time wasn't on their side. The void was spreading, feeding on fear and chaos. Every moment they delayed gave it more power. They agreed to leave immediately, pooling their resources to prepare for the journey. Evelyn Hart, a grizzled spacer who ran supply runs through the sector, offered her ship, Pioneer, for the mission. She didn't ask many questions, but her sharp eyes hinted she understood the stakes. Together, the four of them boarded the battered vessel, setting a course for the galactic core. As the stars streaked past the cockpit windows, Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The void's presence lingered in the back of his mind, a constant hum of unease. He glanced at the others, Nathan's clenched jaw, Rachel's focused expression, Evelyn's steady hands on the controls, and felt a flicker of hope. They were an unlikely team, brought together by desperation and determination. If anyone could stop the void, maybe it was them. But deep down, Aaron knew one thing. This wasn't going to be easy. The galaxy had never faced a threat like this before, and the odds were stacked against them. Still, as the Pioneer hurtled toward the unknown, he held on to the belief that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or ambition. It was its ability to come together when it mattered most. The journey to the galactic core was anything but smooth. The Pioneer shuddered as it passed through a dense cloud of cosmic debris, its aging engines groaning under the strain. Evelyn Hart gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white, as she navigated the treacherous path. Behind her, Nathan, Rachel, and Aaron sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The closer they got to their destination, the heavier the air seemed to grow, as if the void itself was pressing down on them. They stopped at several abandoned colonies along the way, searching for clues or survivors. What they found instead chilled them to the bone. Entire settlements were empty, their streets littered with personal belongings left behind in haste. In one colony, they discovered a child's toy lying in the middle of a playground, its cheerful colors faded but intact. It was as though life had simply ceased to exist, leaving only echoes of what once was. Aaron took the lead in examining the systems of these ghost towns, hoping to find logs or data that could shed light on the void's influence. Each stop revealed more about its insidious nature. Security footage showed people turning on one another, their faces twisted with fear and anger. Voices whispered from broken communicators, repeating the same phrases over and over. "It's watching. We're not alone. Run." Rachel watched silently as Aaron worked, her mind racing. She had spent years trying to bridge gaps between species, fostering peace where there was distrust. But the void didn't care about treaties or alliances. It thrived on division, twisting emotions until even the strongest bonds broke. She thought about the Galactic Coalition and the fragile unity they'd built. If the void reached Earth, all their efforts would crumble. Nathan kept to himself for most of the trip, staring out the viewport at the endless expanse of stars. He couldn't stop thinking about Claire. Was she still alive? Had she been consumed by the void like so many others? Guilt gnawed at him for not being there to protect her, but he forced himself to focus. They were running out of time, and every second counted. Evelyn broke the tension occasionally with dry humor, though her usual sharp wit carried an edge of unease. She'd seen plenty of strange things in her years as a spacer, but nothing compared to this. There was something unnatural about the emptiness they encountered, like the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to hit. Finally, they'd reached the coordinates Rachel had identified earlier. The derelict alien vessel loomed ahead, its surface pitted and scarred by time. It looked like a relic from another era, its design unlike anything they'd ever seen. As they approached, an uneasy feeling settled over the group. This wasn't just a ship, it was a tomb. Evelyn guided the Pioneer into the vessel's docking bay, her hand steady despite the tension radiating off the others. Once inside, they suited up and stepped onto the alien craft. The air was cold and stale, carrying a faint metallic tang. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, pulsing rhythmically as if alive. Aaron recognized them immediately. They matched the ones he'd seen in Delta 9. "This place feels wrong," Rachel whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship. No one disagreed. Every step forward felt like walking deeper into a nightmare. But they pressed on, driven by the hope that answers lay within. Whatever secrets the vessel held might be their only chance to stop the void and save the galaxy from falling into darkness. The deeper they ventured into the alien vessel, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The glowing symbols on the walls seemed to pulse in time with their heartbeats, casting eerie shadows that danced across the floor. Aaron led the way, his scanner picking up faint traces of energy emanating from deeper within the ship. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of centuries was pressing down on them. They reached a large chamber at the heart of the vessel, its ceiling lost in darkness. In the center stood a massive console, covered in intricate patterns that shifted and changed like liquid metal. Rachel approached cautiously, her fingers brushing against the surface. "This must be some kind of control system," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. "But I've never seen anything like it." As she examined the console, Nathan noticed something etched into the wall behind it. A series of carvings depicting strange creatures consumed by shadowy figures. At first glance, they looked like warnings, but upon closer inspection, he realized they were records. These weren't just random images. They told a story. An ancient race had created the void as a weapon to punish civilizations that grew too powerful or reckless. But something went wrong. The entity turned on its creators, consuming them before spreading outward. Before Nathan could share his discovery, Evelyn let out a sharp gasp. She pointed to a corner of the room where a faint blue light flickered. As they moved closer, the light resolved into a holographic projection of an alien figure. Its form was tall and slender, with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed softly. It spoke in a language none of them understood, but the tone was unmistakable, urgent, desperate. Aaron fiddled with his scanner, attempting to translate the message. After several tense minutes, fragments began to appear on the screen. The alien explained that the void couldn't be destroyed. It was bound to the fabric of existence itself. However, it could be contained through unity and resolve. The key lay in the console before them, which required multiple users working together to activate. "It's a trap," Evelyn said bluntly, crossing her arms. "Why would anyone build something this dangerous without safeguards? For all we know, activating it will make things worse." Rachel shook her head. We don't have a choice. If we do nothing, the void will keep spreading until there's nothing left. This might be our only chance to stop it." Tension filled the room as the group exchanged uneasy glances. Trust was fragile, and the stakes were unimaginably high. Then Evelyn sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Fine," she said reluctantly. "But if this goes sideways, I'm blaming all of you." They gathered around the console, placing their hands on designated spots marked by faint indentations. As soon as they made contact, the symbols flared brightly, and the chamber hummed with energy. Images flooded their minds, visions of fear, despair, and destruction. Each person saw glimpses of their worst fears, forcing them to confront the doubts and regrets they carried. For Aaron, it was the faces of the miners he hadn't been able to save. For Nathan, it was Claire, calling out for help he couldn't provide. Rachel saw the collapse of the Galactic Coalition, torn apart by distrust and hatred. And Evelyn relived memories of failures she buried long ago. Despite the pain, they held on, drawing strength from one another. Slowly, the visions faded, replaced by a sense of calm. The console emitted a soft chime, signaling success, but not without cost. Evelyn staggered back, clutching her chest, her face pale. "It's draining us," she rasped. "We can't hold it forever." Nathan stepped forward, determination hardening his features. "Then we'll buy enough time to finish this." He glanced at the others, who nodded grimly. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Rachel stood before the Galactic Coalition, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to say. The chamber was packed with representatives from every corner of the galaxy, their expressions ranging from skepticism to outright hostility. News of the Void's existence had leaked somehow, perhaps through panicked survivors or intercepted transmissions, and rumors were spreading faster than anyone could contain them. Fear hung thick in the air, a palpable force that threatened to unravel the fragile peace Rachel had worked so hard to maintain. "We are facing a threat unlike anything we've encountered," she began, her eyes scanning the crowd. "It does not come from one species or another. It is not born of greed or ambition. This is something ancient, something awakened by our own actions. And if we do not stand together, it will consume us all." Her words were met with murmurs of disbelief and anger. Some delegates accused humanity of causing the crisis, while others demanded proof. A few even suggested abandoning Earth entirely, letting the Void claim it as punishment for humanity's recklessness. Rachel clenched her fists beneath the podium, fighting to keep her composure. She couldn't let fear dictate the outcome. Not now, when unity was their only hope. Back aboard the Pioneer, Nathan reviewed the data they'd retrieved from the alien vessel. The console had provided coordinates for a collapsing star near the galactic core, a natural prison strong enough to contain the Void, at least temporarily. But getting close enough to lure it, there would be suicide without a plan. They needed bait, something powerful enough to draw the Void's attention and guide it into the trap. Evelyn volunteered immediately, her tone matter-of-fact. "I'll take the Pioneer in. You lot can handle the beacon." Her decision shocked no one. She'd always been willing to make sacrifices when it mattered most. Still, Nathan hesitated. "There has to be another way," he said, his voice tight with frustration. Evelyn shook her head, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "Kid, sometimes you don't get a choice. Besides, someone's got to keep this bucket of bolts running long enough to finish the job." As Evelyn prepared the ship for its final mission, Aaron worked tirelessly to assemble the beacon using schematics from the alien logs. The device was crude but functional, designed to emit a signal that mimicked the energy signature of sentient beings. Once activated, it would act as a lure, drawing the Void toward the collapsing star. Rachel coordinated with trusted allies within the coalition, rallying support for a risky evacuation effort. Entire colonies would need to be moved out of harm's way if their plan failed. The moment of truth came quickly. Evelyn launched the Pioneer toward the Void's growing presence, its engines straining against the entity's pull. On the derelict alien vessel, Nathan and Aaron activated the beacon, watching anxiously as the signal lit up their scanners. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the void began to shift, drawn toward the star like moths to a flame. Inside the Pioneer, Evelyn felt the ship shudder violently as the void closed in. Her hands moved deftly over the controls, guiding the craft closer to the heart of the collapsing star. "Come on, you ugly bastard," she muttered under her breath. "Let's end this." In the final seconds, just as the star's gravity reached its peak, Evelyn ejected the core of the Pioneer, creating a massive explosion that sealed the void inside. The shockwave rippled outward, shaking the alien vessel where Nathan and Aaron watched in stunned silence. Evelyn's last transmission crackled over the comm. "Tell 'em I went out doing what I loved." The silence that followed Evelyn's sacrifice was deafening. Nathan and Aaron stood motionless in the alien vessel, staring at the console where her final transmission had played. The weight of what she'd done, and what they'd all endured, pressed down on them like a physical force. Rachel, still aboard the Galactic Coalition station, watched the reports trickle in. The void was gone, sealed within the collapsing star. But the cost of containment weighed heavily on everyone who had witnessed the events unfold. Back on Earth, life began to return to some semblance of normalcy, though scars remained. The riots and unrest that had plagued the planet slowly faded as people processed what had happened. Sam Ford published an expose detailing humanity's role in awakening the void, holding corporations and governments accountable for their greed and recklessness. Her article sparked outrage, but also reflection. For the first time in years, humanity seemed willing to confront its mistakes rather than bury them. Aaron returned to Delta 9, finding solace in rebuilding the colony. Though many refused to come back, those who did were determined to make it stronger, not just as a mining outpost, but as a symbol of resilience. He often thought about Evelyn, wondering if she'd known how much her sacrifice meant. In quiet moments, he swore he could hear her voice teasing him through the hum of machinery, reminding him to keep moving forward. Nathan stayed on the edge of human territory, continuing his work as a diplomat. He carried Claire's memory with him every day, vowing to honor her bravery by fostering understanding between species. The lessons of the void lingered in his mind, a reminder that fear and division only led to destruction. Whenever tensions flared, he shared stories of Evelyn's courage and the unity that had saved them all, hoping to inspire cooperation over conflict. Rachel became a key figure in reshaping the Galactic Coalition. She pushed for reforms aimed at preventing another catastrophe, advocating for transparency and shared responsibility among all species. Though not everyone agreed with her vision, even her critics admitted that humanity's near destruction had forced them to rethink old prejudices. Slowly, trust began to rebuild, not just between humans and aliens, but within humanity itself. The galaxy wasn't perfect. Old wounds took time to heal, and new challenges arose. But something fundamental had shifted. The void's brief reign of terror had revealed humanity's greatest flaw, its tendency to let fear drive decisions, but also its greatest strength, the ability to come together when faced with annihilation. It was a lesson no one would soon forget. At the galactic core, the collapsing star continued its slow death spiral, trapping the void within its fiery embrace. Scientists monitored it closely, ensuring the seal held firm. Some whispered that the void might one day break free, but for now, it remained dormant, a warning etched into the stars themselves. In the end, Evelyn Hart's name became legend. Her selflessness served as a beacon of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, individuals could make choices that changed the course of history. Humanity emerged scared but wiser, humbled by the realization that arrogance came at a price. And while the void slept, its presence lingered as a reminder. The galaxy had never truly known fear until humanity finally snapped and learned the hard way how to mend what it had broken.